wonderful to see so many familiar faces and names coming into the meeting. It's always fun to get together on Thursdays. When boy, do we always seem to have more and more news to report. Who was I talking to? Because they said, boy, you mentioned that you thought an election off season would be a little quieter. Boy, was that naive. It's hard to keep up with everything, but it's good stuff that's happening, most of it. So right off the bat, I want to introduce Kristine Christlieb. You know Kristine, she does a wonderful job of managing our communications program, and she has some news to report and our calendar. So go ahead, Kristine.
Well, thank you, Patrice. So normally, because we have so much on the agenda, and because I want to quickly get through the information, I've actually taken a step that I don't normally do. I've actually written out my remarks. So I just want to inform you about an important story featured on the MFE website right now. And let me encourage you to check the MFE website regularly for updates on stories and events and other information. So one of the most important activities MFEI undertakes is legal challenges to election integrity. So MFEI has just filed a lawsuit, and a story about this lawsuit is currently on the website. We're suing Genesee County, and I want to explain why this case is so important. And as I talk about this case, I'm going to be covering three key elements: FOIA law, Benson's potentially illegal directives to clerks, and absentee ballots. This may seem like sort of an inconspicuous lawsuit, but these three very important elements are embedded in this case against Genesee County. So whenever you talk about a lawsuit, you want to start out with the facts of the case. So the MFE has filed at least these three areas. So the data team is always MFEI's data team is always looking to validate the accuracy of the state's election records. One way they do that is to see what totals the state produces and then compare that total with the sum total from the 83 counties. And the numbers should match. So MFEI's data team was investigating special election data, and the team sent a FOIA request to all 83 Michigan county clerks asking for 6 pieces of information: voter identification number, county, jurisdiction, precinct, election date, and whether the ballot was absentee. When Genesee County responded, they said they would be redacting 2 of those requests. They would be redacting the voter ID data as well as whether the ballot was presented absentee or in person. Then, quickly, the Bureau of Elections intervened, writing all 83 county election officials, including the deputy clerks and the FOIA administrators, saying they could not disclose the method of voting because of potential privacy violations. And that whole issue is in litigation itself. So, and then Genesee County then entirely denied MFEI's FOIA request. They wouldn't give any data at all, and they didn't provide any reason for the denial. Now, let's go back to our 3 points again: the FOIA request, the Bureau of Elections directives, and the absentee ballots. This case captures all of them. And I just want to start out with FOIA. And no one could talk more eloquently about the importance of the Freedom of Information Act to election integrity than Patrice Johnson. I would put her on right now, except our time is short. Let me just tell you that I wish I had one of her handy quotes, but essentially what she points out is that without information MFEI obtains through the Freedom of Information Act, we are completely unable to effectively hold our government accountable. So the election data MFEI request is vital to government accountability. When FOIA requests are denied, we are compelled to fight for them. We have to put the government on notice through these lawsuits that they cannot randomly decide to ignore the FOIA laws. in this case, we're putting the government on notice, not just on behalf of Genesee County voters, but for all of Michigan. So this case will put Michigan clerks on notice that MFEI will guard a FOIA law and fight for it. But Michigan is providing leadership for other states as well, including red states. I recently got a call from the secretary of Oklahoma's GOP, and she was telling me about a similar problem in Oklahoma, that they're denying FOIA requests. And I said, well, you're just going to have to sue them. And she, talked about the cost. And she also said that they didn't have access to FOIA legal experts. So we are so blessed to have an attorney like Tom Lambert on our side, who has this expertise in FOIA law. And so his expertise, that's going to filter out not just to Michigan, but to other states as well. So second, this case is yet another example of Benson's overreach of using directives to govern elections without the legislature. And unfortunately, many clerks are complying. So Michigan Fair Elections Institute is calling this out. And we're adding our voice to those of Representative Rochelle Smith and the Oversight Committee. Remember, Benson has refused to supply the Oversight Committee with her clerk training materials. So we, the citizens of Michigan, have no idea, our representatives have no idea what is in those training materials because the Secretary of State will not supply them. Third, the information Benson wants to suppress is absentee ballot data. Keep that in mind. We all know the host of problems that come along with absentee ballots. And what are they trying to suppress? Precisely that information. So there's a lot of it at stake in this case, more than you might expect in a lawsuit against Genesee County, which is rogue on various levels. And I won't go into that. But these cases are important and they're expensive. And MFAI takes on these cases at considerable expense. And so it may seem like, oh, it's just, a lawsuit against Genesee County. No, there's a lot at stake here. Okay, so I'm done with explaining that case. You can read more about it on the MFE website. Like I said, you can look into it there. Now, let me go ahead and just talk about some of the some calendar issues. So I believe it is this week that time runs out for Jocelyn Benson. The Department of Justice asked her to supply information in 14 days. Depending on how you count it, I'm pretty sure her time is up at the end of this week, whether you count business days or actually 14 consecutive days, it just depends. So her time runs out there, so we're going to need to follow up on that. On Monday, on August 11th, the Bureau of Elections Director, Jonathan Brader, is back on the witness stand in Hillsdale. I'll be there along with the Midwesterner to cover that. On the 12th, a lot of stuff is happening. So it's possible there will be an election integrity hearing in Lansing. We know there's some good stuff happening in Benzie County. I think Mark's going to talk about that on the 12th. And then coming up, Jeff Schaeper will be talking about that August 12th is National Poll Worker Election Day. So there's some great stuff there. Then coming up in September, there are several, and it'll be here before we know it, right? We have coming up a volunteer recognition event on Saturday, September 6th, and then later in the month is the leadership conference at Mackinac Island. So those are the calendar events that I know about.
Thank you, Kristine. Wonderful presentation. And I would just add, because I can't help myself, but I would just add that the government cannot just exempt information. It just can't say, we're not sharing this anymore. they have to, by law, get it approved to exempt information. The information that they hold is personal, private information that would give out a person's identity. We weren't asking for that. We were asking for information about how they voted, a method of voting. And they had to go through a process to exempt information. They didn't go through any process. They just decided, no, we're not going to send it anymore. So this will not stand. Golly, thank you. All right, thank you. And Alan has been doing marvelous work. He and Shelley, whom you know, have been doing the clerk liaison program, and that's a really important program, as I've mentioned, because and it ties into self-government. Our nation is a nation of self-government where we don't allow tyrants. We defend our individual rights as citizens to make our own decisions and to run our own lives and pursue life, liberty, and happiness. So along with that comes the very important job of working with clerks to get ineligible people off the voter rolls. So Alan, tell us a little bit about the Clerk Liaison Program and what you're doing and what's in stock for us.
Right. Well, couple things here I want to kind of touch on. One thing, kind of jumping off what you just said, is that we're hoping, one thing that we're, direction we're hoping to pursue is a little bit less of a confrontational version of that interaction with clerks, more of a collaborative interaction. And toward that end, we are trying to change the perception of MFEI in their perceptions as from a watchdog group to a service and informational partner. So we're hoping to move ahead on a couple of fronts, including adding a portal on the MFEI website for pertinent information to the clerks. We're looking at reaching out to the clerk associations and to kind of partner with them to disseminate some of our objectives to the clerks, as opposed to us necessarily having to go at them directly and just engage them, because by and large our objectives are the same, conducting good, clean elections. And so we want to kind of leverage that and get their buy-in to self-develop their people, instead of us having to always needing to confront and that type of thing. So hopefully we'll put a little sugar on that and get a little bit fewer flies that way. The other thing that we're doing internally is looking at what I call modularization. That is kind of differentiating roles between, say, souls to roles and the clerk liaison activity, so that if you have an individual who, say, maybe a people person but is not a data person, is not an investigative and analytical person, they still have a role that they can play, and then we have just the to navigate the handoff of information, that type of thing. But we want to be able to, while certain individuals certainly can blend those talents, others, it might work out better to have handoffs like that, and we want to kind of have a paradigm by which that can happen cleanly. Also, we're looking at differentiating between the county and municipality clerks, because their roles, their deliverables are different, and so the expectations that we might hold for them are also should be similarly nuanced, and so we're looking at clarifying that. Finally, I think I mentioned that already. So those were the highlights that I wanted to mention. I did want to we're kind of leverage what we have in the so-called Sunshine Award, which currently we've been kind of bestowing on county clerks in relationship to FOIA disclosures. I'm hoping that we might be able to expand that to local clerks and also to those clerks that are just plain responsive, so that those clerks that will give us information without us having to go under power of law to ask for it and provide it. They should be, likewise recognized. So that's another area that we'll kind of be pursuing.
Great, Alan. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have your leadership and your strategic thinking. So I know the program, it's such an important program, and it's just gonna go gangbusters under you. So thank you for your thinking on this. Now it's my pleasure. We've had Sheriff Murphy with us one time before, I believe. And at that time, I think I said, we'll have to have you back. So I'm really thrilled to have Sheriff Mike Murphy from Livingston County here with us. And he's going to be talking about law enforcement, obviously, and a constitutional sheriff's perspective. So fill us in, Sheriff Murphy. What are you seeing out there?
So yeah, thank you for the invite. And you're right, I was here once upon a time. And for those of you that heard me speak to this group the last time, I think I mentioned I don't do well with canned programs or presentations. So have your questions ready. I do much better interactive. So, and just like last time, I don't have a canned presentation here, but I will say this, I've been pegged as a constitutional sheriff, and as much as I appreciate that, I'm really not sure what that means. Nobody's really kind of been able to describe that because frankly, we all take an oath to uphold the Constitution. Some of us seem to do a little bit better job than others, but at the end of the day, that's the reality. And there's a few folks out there that I've gotten dinged from a little bit for not belonging to the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association, which is the Sheriff Mac group. And my response to that is, just taking another pledge or belonging to a group or signing an oath or, whatever it is, you can sign a bunch of those things. Doesn't make it any more so if you're not going to walk the walk and talk the talk, basically, right? So, this is my third term as sheriff, when I raised my right hand and was honored actually to have my friend Elizabeth Hunley, who happens to be the clerk here, swear me in as sheriff. I took that oath to uphold the Constitution. So that said, we, a law is, and I think this is where a little confusion comes in when folks say, well, you don't support the Constitution or you don't believe it or whatever. At the end of the day, a law, once it's passed by the legislature, unfortunately, it's a law until it's ruled not a law, right? And because it's unconstitutional or because of whatever the reason is. So to say that, you should or shouldn't support, my take on that and the way I address it to, my county is this: listen, we as sheriffs, we as law enforcement have a lot of discretion. And if the discretion can be used, then we're going to use it until, you name it, law goes through the process and it is determined whether it's constitutional or not. So so that's my constitutional spiel. Law enforcement, it's ever evolving, just like any business. The world we live in today is way faster than at any point in history. With the technology that's out there, that's made our jobs much more difficult. It used to be most of our bad guys were local. Now, oftentimes, they're on the other side of the country or the world, frankly, with some of the financial crimes and stuff that we're seeing and the scams that people are falling victim to. So it's difficult to kind of keep track of that and stay up on that. And frankly, a lot of those, especially if they're out of the country, they just get written off. I mean, we forward the information to the feds, and maybe someday they get held accountable. But at the end of the day, that's pretty tough to do, unfortunately. So with that, I guess I'll just open it up to. I can ramble on and on, but I'll open it up to any questions if there's any.
Chris Gursky put a question in the chat. She says, "Hi, Sheriff. How did you guys manage to make Livingston County a constitutional county, or is it just about guns?" ?
Yeah, so no, so that was driven 100% by the Board of Commissioners. So that was, that was it's a statement basically, right? Because the county board has no authority to tell the local jurisdictions how to run their business and what to do. So it was really just a statement that we as Livingston County Board of Commissioners, this is how we view things, and this is how we would hope that other people would view things. And they did that with making it a constitutional county, an anti-sanctuary county, and a 2A county. Those were all resolutions that were passed by the county board.
I have a question for you. We have a kind of an issue in that the clerks around the state are actually independent. You know, they report to their constituents and their job is to uphold the Constitution, but they actually, many of them feel that they report to the Secretary of State. I was told that recently by a clerk. And I was shocked that she was a county clerk that told me this. So how would you recommend clerks be communicated with so they understand their autonomy and their responsibility?
You know, that's a great question. I would suggest that you reach out to their organization. You know, like the Sheriff's Association has a statewide organization. The clerks do as well. They all get together, I think, twice a year for a conference. Maybe some coordination between whoever the chair is of that this year. I'm not familiar, and I think I heard earlier. I know that Elizabeth was past chair. I think just this past year. Maybe reach out to her first to see who you could get in contact with to be to work up a quote unquote lesson plan and be a presenter at the county clerks, and then that information takes a while to filter as well, right? Because the county clerks, some people are under the impression that the local clerks work for the county clerks, and that's really not true. Hopefully they work together, right? But they don't work for, just like the clerks don't work for the Secretary of State. So I think with a well thought out presentation that could come across pretty well and kind of explain the autonomy. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Yes. Thank you. So are there any questions for Sheriff Murphy? I'm not seeing any. So if you have your hand up, pipe in.
Yeah, I see that. I see Chris, Wayne County commissioners would probably never go for that. You know, obviously it's very dependent. And just like we just talked about with the clerks having autonomy, the sheriffs do too, right? As do the Board of Commissioners. So there's a lot of, you know, in a perfect world, that has kind of what's kept our government honest, I guess, for lack of better words, because there's no dictator, right? I mean, I work for the people, your clerks work for the people, and the Board of Commissioners work for the people. All elected officials work for the people, and there's not really that hierarchy that says it. And, you know, unfortunately, you have to look at your demographics. So, you know, would Wayne County pass a resolution to become a constitutional county? Ain't gonna happen. Washtenaw County, ain't gonna happen. So it's just the way that it is, and the demographics that are made up in that particular county, really.
All right.
Yes,
well,
they
thank
do.
you.
So, sorry, I'm looking at Allison's question. Does Michigan County, did the board control the purse strings? Yes. So the Board of Commissioners, in my case, set my budget. So I say, you know, hey, I want $5. And they say, nope, we've only got $4 to give you. We arm wrestle, go back and forth, call each other names, you know, bloody each other's noses, whatever. And then at the end of the day, we settle on $4.50 or, you know, whatever it is, and we go from there. But that's the only thing that they do. So all the electeds try to work with the board, but the board is not our boss, and we do not have to abide by county policy. So the Board of Commissioners can't tell me as a sheriff, hey, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. The only thing that they have control of is the money, the original budget.
Hey, Patrice.
Thank you. Yes.
A couple of quick things. This is Shelley from Berry County. And number one, I did put it in the chat, but when Ellen and I were on the phone, I saw Michigan Township Association has county chapters with leaders in those counties. Not all counties have them, but I couldn't export it or send it, but I'm putting that together because that's a great contact per county that's representing MTA, part of MTA.
Okay.
Number two, the county commissioners, at least here, they have the purse strings, but they don't have any control over our election boards. To Allison's question, especially at the township level, they have no control over that. You know, it is what it is. But I had a question for the sheriff. Do you work with other constitutional sheriffs? I'm in Darleaf's county, and I'd like to know, do any of the sheriffs collaborate and work together with what they're finding or evidence of election problems?
Yeah, so we do. We have, I mentioned earlier, the Sheriff's Association. There's a list serve that we all belong to. And so for me and Dar, it's typically emails between us or through the listserv. For the surrounding counties, we typically, meet and have coffee or whatever. So it really kind of depends geographically where you're at. Obviously, Michigan's a good-sized state. So to answer your question, yes, there's communication. And then also we meet, just like the clerks, we meet twice a year. So there's a lot of face-to-face communication that happens during those times too. And we have one session set aside it's just kind of an open forum. Hey, what's going on in your area? What can we expect on all topics, not just elections, but just, as a whole, what are we seeing in law enforcement?
Okay, Tim Vetter has a question, and then that'll have to be our last question so we can go on to the other folks. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes, thank you, Patrice. My question is similar to what Shelley Lake brought up, because Shelley Lake was involved in a group that has looked into the manipulation of vote history records, and as well as many other organizations. There's a lot of double votes that happened in Livingston County and past. I've tried to get a lot of things investigated in Oakland County. It seems like I cannot go through my sheriff groups to get violations of election law, specifically manipulation of vote history records. Many of us can't get those investigated. What are your thoughts to that?
Man, I got nothing for you on that, to be very honest with you. I mean, that's unfortunate. I can tell you that, we've done our fair share. I know that you're familiar with Janine Ayer, who's affiliated with this group. We've had several conversations with her, and we have done investigations where they sometimes fall apart. After the investigation is then, of course, the system being the way that it is, then the prosecutor's office has to get involved, right, and author charges. And, unfortunately, a couple of these cases were admittedly, in one case, the lady voted for her husband, who was deceased, and but she knew that that's the way that he wanted to vote, and so she did the vote. And the prosecutor, not our current prosecutor, so that'll be interesting to see how things work going forward, but the prosecutor at the time said, she's 87 years old, I feel sorry for her, we're going to chalk it up to human error or whatever. Well, okay, but at some point, I mean, that it was admitted. She admitted she did it, right? I mean, I don't know how much more clear cut it gets. So I will tell you this, that we will have a couple of test cases, I'm sure, with our new prosecutor. And frankly, from a law enforcement perspective, and I hate to be this blunt, but I will be, we're only going to get kicked in the groin a few times before we just don't waste our resources anymore, right? So we'll look at cases, and if we think it's there, we'll do the investigation and then present it. And if we get charges, then great, we'll continue to pursue those when they're brought to our attention. But if they're not going to get past us doing a bunch of paperwork and spending a bunch of time, you know, we're gonna use our time elsewhere, frankly. I mean, it's just, again, I hate to be that blunt, but that's the reality of it. Circling back to your original question, I would just start to be a pain in the sheriff's side over there or whoever, and just say, listen, you guys, we gotta do something. Start making things a little bit maybe more public, that gets a little light shined on it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Really helpful. Janine, I see your hand is up. Is it a quick question? Go ahead. You're muted though. Sorry,
Well,
Janine.
Denise,
not
unmuting
here.
yourself really quick. You know, there was an announcement of 15 non-citizens potentially not voting. Have you heard? You may not have. If there's been any movement on that?
I'm not, but you know, in my simple cop mind, the solution to the whole voting thing is, you know, we can't get on a plane anymore without real ID showing that that's really who you are. You just have real ID for voting. Pretty simple, right? I mean, that problem
Great
solved.
minds think alike, and obviously you and I are on a higher plane than most.
Well, you should keep in mind that
Not a higher plane, but thank you.
real ID doesn't verify citizenship though. So
No, it's
that's an issue with real ID.
big step in the right direction, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Janine.
Just a very quick comment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sheriff Murphy was kind enough to do an investigation for our group that canvassed in 2021 to 2022, and had an investigator assigned to the issues that we brought forward. And what I learned from that was that about three things. One is sometimes Michigan law doesn't prescribe specific punishments for violation. The second thing is sometimes if someone registers at like a non-existent address, it's not easy to prove intent to defraud or what have you. And then thirdly, which is what Sheriff Murphy mentioned, is the prosecutor may not be willing to prosecute an election crime. So that's what I learned from that. But as far as what Tim brought up about double voting in Livingston, it happened. And I would just, you know, I would look at that law if I were, you know, and maybe I'll be at Sheriff Murphy's office sometime soon to just have a further conversation. I don't want to take up any more time. Thank you so much, Sheriff, and everyone.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you'll stay on the call. You're absolutely welcome. Thank you. All right. So next up, I wanted to also mention that next week we have Rep. Smith on the call. She'll be joining us. We have Ron Armstrong and Seth Keschel, and it's going to be a great lineup next week. So mark your calendars not to miss next week as well. Isaac, fill us in on what you're doing. Isaac is the man who wears many hats. He's the IT guy, and he runs Souls to Rolls.
All right, so let's see if I can unwind some of the complexity that we're dealing with on our end right now. So the simple kind of perspective is that when we're in an off election year, it's a little difficult to get engagement for Souls to Rolls, for Check My Vote efforts, just because it's not as much within the public attention sphere, and it very much is an issue of numbers because registrations are popping up everywhere month by month throughout the entire state. So Souls to Rolls is tasked with the job of essentially combating the mismanagement of data that leads to bloated voter rolls, bloated voter registrations. And we are essentially trying to build an infrastructure that does combat against systems like ERIC that typically over-register people, in this case, who aren't even citizens sometimes, through automated systems, and some unfortunate recent legislation makes it even easier for non-citizens who have encounters with like the DMV to be automatically registered either without their consent or knowledge, or sometimes with their consent or knowledge, but no security mechanisms to stop it from happening. So we are attempting, or rather MFEI is building itself into an instrument to combat the automated incorrect registration of people all throughout the state. It's very much a numbers game, and eventually we're going to have to grow to the point where the month by month registrations that are added to the QVF are all combed through by volunteers and then challenged and eventually removed if they need to be removed. Now that's the challenge, and it's been a big task. We don't expect it to be finished within a super short period of time, but that's the goal as we see it. Now I do have some good news about Check My Vote. This past Tuesday, Fonnie went over some new features that they're not quite ready yet, but they will help us out quite a bit with progress reports, getting a sense for how much we're actually doing. It will allow the individual user to get statistics on what they've done, and it will also allow the individual user to associate with a group like MFEI so that we can get a sense for how many volunteers we have actively doing stuff, actively flagging registrations within given counties, and then also the system will record removed registrations through month by month QVF updates so that you can see whether or not your flags are actually doing something. And then if they're not, you can also go talk to your clerk again. So that's a very exciting update that Fonnie's working on. There's more stuff that Fonnie's working on. He always has new features in mind to improve the system. One thing I would like to show something real quick though, just to kind of drive home what we're dealing with. So let me share my screen real quick. This is an unfinished area right now. So this is where the new features are going to go that allow you to see your own personal progress. Some of it's under construction still. So I can't show off the user interface there, but you know, I think Fonnie would be happy to demonstrate some of that in a couple weeks when it's rolled out. What I want to show off right here, this is the page representing new registrations that have been added to the QVF this month. And what's interesting is that it only takes 30 seconds to look at the new data and start asking questions. You can see if you sort the new registrations by various properties, you can already see there are some anomalies within the information. One of the ones that I see right here is just that there's different conventions with voter ID, for example. This is a clearly much older voter ID back when the system was using a different scheme for it. But what's interesting here is that the registration date is from 2006, and yet it was added to the QVF between this month and the previous month. Now, I think we did miss out on the July data, so that would mean that it would be June data instead. But still, that's the scope of a couple of months, and yet the data is showing itself as backdated by decades. So that's one anomaly. If you instead sort by year of birth, then you can also see we're having people who were born in 1927 added to the registrations, and they were added sometime the last month. That doesn't make a whole ton of sense. Stuff like this happens on a regular basis all throughout the state, and so this is the kind of data that we want to essentially build a shield against. It's unclear why it's in the system, but we want to stop this data from being injected into the system. Now, basically what that means is we have to come at this problem from all the different teams that we have, and we have to improve our workflow and our collaboration to the point where we form a shield against these false registrations being injected into the QVF. As Alan, our clerk contact lead, has highlighted over the past couple of days, we do still have to insist that we get clean voter registrations. That's the battlefield where we really need to win in the long term in order to secure our elections. So there are a few things in the works, better website access, better technology. We're looking at a resource center for clerks to use on our website. Fonnie's looking to do somewhat of the same thing on Check My Vote so that they have access to that data. And We're trying to make sure everything comes together so that we can fight this fight. And automated systems are a big part because, as Chris just pointed out, the numbers battle, it's really easy to get put at a disadvantage in the numbers battle because ERIC is an automated system. Eventually, we need automated systems as well that can comb through these things and do damage as quickly as they're doing damage, or rather fix things as quickly as they're doing damage, hopefully. Yes, Janine. You're muted, Janine.
Sorry, that was a mistake.
Oh, okay, great.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Well, that was a great presentation, and people have noted that in the chat, Isaac. So thank you very much. And if it's all right, I'd like to scramble up the order of the agenda a little bit because we're running a little short on time, and I know people want to talk about the election. It's a big agenda. I might have gotten overzealous in adding people, but what I'd like to do first of all, before we move on to talking about yesterday's election, is talk about our All-Star Award winner for the week. Many of you may have received emails or met this person or seen her at events. Melanie Nivelt has been a true patriot for such a long time. I think I first met her at the North Oakland Republican Committee or something. I was speaking there, and but that's when I put a name to a face because she's been involved for quite a long time. So Melanie, it's my pleasure, my honor to award to you this week's All-Star Award, and you'll be getting a letter from Michigan Fair Elections and a certificate as well as a challenge coin. Is there anything you'd like to say? If you're here, I think.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I am way shocked here. I haven't been at this as long as the majority of you, or made made a good dent in this yet. But I love this organization, and Patrice, I think I told you that I have learned more from the people from your group that I have learned being an elected official for several years and a planning commissioner. And that's invaluable to me. And so I appreciate it. And I thank all of you. I just appreciate you letting me do this with you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We're quite a team, I'll tell you that. A lot of talent
Oh my gosh,
in this group.
you sure do. And I don't know how you found all these individual people that are just so smart and know how to get things done. And it's impressive. It really is.
Well, it's the people, that's for sure. All right, so next, let's get to talking about yesterday's election a little bit, and then we'll hopefully come back to Sheree and Darlene because they've got important things to say too. But Jeff, why don't you give us just a quick after-election debriefing, and then we'll go to Dee Davey, who's got some things to say about it too. And then there's some folks that have been putting things in the chat.
Yes. So very quick, I want to talk about the importance of you being a poll worker. Again, you are in the process. You are our front line. And with the recent laws and with Prop 22, a lot of our former roles as poll watchers and poll challengers have been severely diminished and of less important. Now, what happened in 2022 with the passage of Prop 2 and then also with COVID is that many longtime workers stopped working elections. It got too complex, and then many people didn't want to deal with the mask and things like that. And so what we discovered is the recruitment of quality workers is critical before anything can happen. And now it's been, stressed that parity between the two major parties is important. So it's time for you to be part of the solution instead of being part of the problem. Just a quick little rundown. Again, the RNC basically sued. We got parity, and it's now basically settled that parity is needed. And I'm going to say this, the city of Detroit has made efforts to achieve parity. Second thing that the city of Detroit has done is seriously upgraded the quality of their training. So I said, okay, I'm going to be part of the solution. I'm going to step up and I'm going to work. So on election day in Detroit, I worked precinct 306 in the Brightmoor area. The team that I worked with was very accepting, friendly, and helping. It was a slow day. It was a low turnout. And you made progress because they specifically asked if I would come back in November, and I will. These guys were really, really nice. I've talked with Bethany. I've talked with Susan. I've talked with Mike. I'm not going to give last names. All their experiences were basically the same because we approached them with an attitude, hey, we're here to help. We want to be part of the solution. In the city of Detroit, after the fiasco of 2020, and I was down at the receiving board in 2022, basically all said, we got to seriously upgrade our process, and we also need to have help. So Detroit needs help. And I forgot to mention other jurisdictions. I think that was in an earlier slide. But there'll be an opportunity. Oops, I've got this wrong. There'll be an opportunity for more workers in the Detroit election. And with the PIME site has, a place where you can sign up to be an election worker in the city of Detroit. And we are able to, it links to the online application into the city, and we can track if you've been called, if you've been requested to be trained and also serve. So I highly recommend that everyone go to that site, our site, and become an election worker. Just go to Pure Integrity Michigan Elections, and you'll be right there. You just have to scroll down a little bit. Okay? And finally, we all recognize the importance. The whole nation does. So the Election Assistance Commission has put together something for August 12th, where they want to celebrate and also help recruit poll workers. And there's a link down here. I'll post it in the chat, but I'll show you real quick what it's like. Darn it. Okay, it's this one. I think. Nope. It is, well, shoot. I know where it is. Okay, never mind. Okay, so right here, resources, and you can see that they've got all kinds of recruitment tools. Also talks about best practices. And it gives you templates that you can see recruiting tools. And it gives you all kinds of standard setups right now. So that was my experience. Gary Atkins, I think, had a different experience, but
Greg.
Go ahead real quick, Gary.
Greg.
Got a minute.
Well, actually, let's have Dee Davey talk next, and then let's go to Greg and also somebody else. I can't remember. I'll check. Go ahead, Dee.
Thank you, Patrice. Jeff, thank you for stressing the importance of being a poll worker, a poll inspector. I always refer to it as it's our opportunity to be the eyes in the room and to observe things that are maybe not quite right. My experience in working in Ann Arbor has been a very positive experience, and all of the chairs that I've worked with have done things by the book. But this last election cycle, there were two examples where I had the opportunity to establish trust with new chairs that I had not worked with before. And I did that through demonstrating a knowledge and understanding of our MCL law and the procedures in the worker handbook. I want to give just two little quick examples of how that knowledge was demonstrated, and therefore I gained better trust with my chairs. One, we had a gentleman walk in with an absentee ballot envelope under his arm. And he said, "Oh, I'm delivering this. Where do I deposit it?" And of course, we were in a location where we didn't have a drop box for him, and we were not a clerk's office. So we advised him, the chair advised him, "Oh, you can't deliver that here." So I asked her later and I said, hypothetically speaking, if this gentleman had walked in and said and volunteered the information, because we know, you and I know, that the law states that nobody can deliver an absentee ballot unless they are an immediate member of family. But what if this gentleman hypothetically said, "I'm delivering this for my neighbor"? What would your response be, Chair? How would you handle that? And so we had an open discussion on how that would be handled. And from that, she understood that I knew the law, and I understood that she knew the law, and the rapport was strengthened. Later during the day, I overheard the two co-chairs. One of the co-chairs was a Democrat, and the other co-chair was a Libertarian. And I overheard them talking and saying, "Well, at the end of the night, we'll be taking all of the election stuff over to the receiving board." And I thought, I'm not quite so sure about the law. Democrat and Libertarian. My understanding is always that it's been a Democrat and a Republican. So quietly, I got on my iPhone and I researched MCL 168.16. And when I had a moment to talk with the two chairs, I just read them the statute. I read them MCL 168.16 that states clearly that the majority party are the people responsible for election process. And I knew Libertarian wasn't one of the majority parties. They kind of gave me pushback and they kind of sidestepped it. But in the end, the Libertarian co-chair backed down, and I was able to go to the receiving board with the Democrat and represented Democrat and Republican. So not only did that reestablish trust with the co-chair, but it also pulled out and educated my chair and co-chair that we as poll workers understand the law, we know how to interpret the law, and we want to follow the law, and we want them to follow the law. So I just wanted to share those two examples of where our knowledge of law can really make a difference. Thank you, Patrice.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dee. And I think you're exactly right about knowing the law. And in a second, I'll walk over and grab a booklet. But in the meantime, Greg, tell us about your experience.
All right. I worked 16 straight 10-hour days during early voting in Northeast Detroit last October to November. Election day, I worked at a church on the east edge of downtown Detroit. I recently worked 9 consecutive 10-hour days at an early voting center in Northwest Detroit. And again, on election day, a couple days ago, back at the same church in Detroit. Both of the election days I was there probably roughly 14 hours, about 6 a.m. till 8:30 or 9.
On the volunteer picnic that's coming up, as well as, Darlene, if it's all right with you, we might have to move you till next week, but on the ranked choice voting, but if you can give us a little bit of update on the national working groups, that would be terrific. So Sheree, Mary, go ahead, and then we'll go to Sheree.
Okay, you're talking to me, Mary Moylan? Okay.
That's right.
Happy to give my experience. I've worked twice now at precinct 143 in Detroit, which is probably just a few miles outside downtown. And I did the training, of course, down in Detroit. And I thought the training was excellent. I thought it was very good. And I have seen my 2 days there at my precinct. I thought they did an excellent job as well. The chairwoman was very, very knowledgeable. And I know she took a lot of time. And so from what I saw, I think I put in the message, any fraud that we're seeing has to be done at higher levels. I think down at the precinct level, at least from my experience, they are following the rules. They're trying to do their best. I do believe I was the only Republican there, though. And I made a mistake listening to the other guys. I was not asked to go deliver the ballots or the information on Tuesday, although I was on in November. And I have to tell you, I was kind of glad because Detroit is scary at night and I got lost a few times. That's the only problem that I had with the end of the day. But otherwise, it was very good.
Wonderful. Well, that's good to hear. Appreciate your service, Mary. Now, Sheree, tell us what's cooking here with the picnic. I see you put in.
Okay, great. In a 30-second rundown, everybody, and then you can sign off. Kelsey just posted in the chat the link to register for the volunteer picnic, and which is going to be on September the 6th, which is a Saturday in Howell, Michigan. So just click that link to register. I also put my email and my phone number in the chat, and you can certainly call me or email me, and I can help you get registered or answer any questions that you may have. So for now, we'll just call it good with that. But the picnic is more than a picnic. I want to emphasize that. It's more than just getting together and eating great summer food and things like that. There are some special things that are going to be happening at that picnic, so you're not going to want to miss it. So click the box there or email or call me, and I'll guide you in the right direction. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Darlene, give us a wrap up.
Okay, hi. I had a little bit more to say, but I will just wrap it up very quickly about what we're planning to do. If anyone attends the Election Integrity Network working groups, please get in contact with me, or since we don't have time for anybody to put in their email address in here, but we have assignments in the working groups. It's a wonderful, or we're under their umbrella. We're the Michigan group under the EIN Election Integrity Network. And so we have about 20 people attending meetings, and our plan is to get together and work on the homework assignment so we don't duplicate, and we can be able to be more efficient in getting our assignments done and back to the group. So we're working on model state legislation and sound policy recommendations, and that's what they're doing in there, so we can work it through all the different states that are belonging to that. So if you are go to any of the groups. I did put my email in there. I'll put it in again if you'll just text or email me, and then we're going to have a working we'll have a group so that we can work on this together. I'm sorry, I ran through that so quick. Hope everybody understands what I meant.
You did a great job. Thank you, Darlene.
Okay.
I was laughing at a comment in the chat from
Oh, okay.
Kristine. Great, everybody. Well, I can't believe we actually did get through the whole agenda, although we cut some folks very short. So Sheree and Darlene will be sure to put you top of the agenda next week.
Okay.
And then please make a note. I said we've got some real interesting folks coming on next week too. So, and if you know people you'd like to have join the call, please let us know and invite them. We'd like to have them come. So thanks a lot for joining, and thanks for all the great work the team's doing. Bye, everybody.